All right. So, welcome everybody to our Ali Near Death and Spiritually Transformative Experiences workshop. And my name is Catherine Chapey. I'm so happy that you're here with us today. And today we have a wonderful speaker. Her name is Loraine Magda. So, Loraine, as a child, was deeply interested in the big, deep questions like who am I? What is the meaning of life? And what's the purpose of this life? Around the age of 6, two pivotal experiences shaped her life. One was a spiritually transformative experience that showed her reality is far beyond just the physical. And the other was a huge aha moment on the playground in kindergarten. One was spiritual, and the other was about societal conditioning, particularly of gender roles and her responses to it. And it turns out these two influences shaped the course of her life and led her on a healing journey and a creative gift to share with others. So I cannot wait to hear about your journey. Hello, Loraine. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks for the introduction. And hi to everybody here. And thank you also for taking the time to be here. So yeah, let me get straight into it then. But before I say anything, just I want to say that I'm from South Africa. I'm actually in Cape Town right now. But you may not know this, but I'm very connected to US culture because for various reasons. The first is that I fell in love with American culture at the age of 6, and it was through comic books, like Marvel and DC comics. So I read them from cover to cover, and it was really the can-do attitude that I picked up off of that, and also the kind of the justice, like the Justice League of
Yes.
America and all these like strong people,
Wow.
fighting for justice. Yeah.
Wow. At that early of an age, too. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was so enamored with all of that.
That's
Um, so that was interesting. And since then, I'd always wanted to go to the US. So I managed to do exactly that. In high school, I was an exchange student and landed up in Southern California, lived with a family, got my high school graduation there. And, of course, in those days, this was like 86 and 87. I had to learn US history, US government. And, so I had this really inside connection to lots of cultural things in the US. And then I came back later, and that'll be part of my story. And I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a further 4 years. So I have a very happy connection with the US. So I just thought I'd mention that.
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
And that was in
Yeah.
high school. You were an exchange student, Loraine?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, in high school, in the senior year of high school.
Wonderful.
So it was really fun. Yeah, um, so now back to or forward to my story. And perhaps just a little background before I jump into my spiritually transformative experience. I think I just came into this life as a deep thinker. I remember, this is crazy, but I remember being 1 year old, still learning to walk and still falling backwards onto my head and and having this moment where I thought to myself, I'm going to get it right in this lifetime. Okay. And by that, I meant I don't want to screw up, my life. I want to like figure out what it's about and I want to do the best that I can. So that's at age 1. Then I also remember at age 4.5 saying things to my mother like, like, what do you think was here before all of this started? And she turned to me and she didn't understand where I was coming from. And she said something like, well, basically, it probably looked like a prairie, you know, like open fields and like animals and stuff. And I was so frustrated because I meant, like, what do you think was here before the whole universe was created? That's at 4.5. Okay, so
Right. You
that's
were going
ridiculous.
broad. You were going broad.
It's seriously broad. And yeah, and yeah, so I had that real curiosity about understanding life and everything. And now another piece of the context is that I grew up Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but not a very heavy-handed parenting when it came to this. My parents were quite open-minded in a way. So I had Catholicism, but a sort of a light touch, if I can, if
Mhm.
I can put it that way. Um, and then just one more thing is that I must have had a deep, clear sentience because I could feel things around me. Like I could feel my dad's pain, even though he never spoke about it. And he was a war orphan from Poland who landed up in South Africa as one of 500 refugee children. So he had a hectic start to life. He lived in Siberia in a camp, and I mean,
Wow.
his whole family was broken up. He lost his mother. He was orphaned at the age of 12. So I had that kind of thing going as well. Like I could feel his pain. I could feel my mother's pain. My grandmother had this terrible burden, which I didn't understand because nobody told me about it, but I could feel it. And so that sort of informed what these two experiences that I'm about to share with you now. So here I am. I don't even think I could read. I think I was like 6, and I'm staring at this book that I just got out of the library, and it's a book on astronomy, but for children. So I can still see this little boy looking at the moon through his telescope. And I sat there and I had this already a fascination with the universe, like I just felt really connected to stars and the big night sky and that sort of thing. And lo and behold, as I'm staring at this book, and I have this feeling inside me of, oh, but you look so familiar. There's just something about you, but I can't put my finger on it. And as I'm almost feeling these thoughts rather than thinking them, the next thing I know is I am in outer space. And I don't mean a childlike idea of outer space. I don't mean a dreamlike thing. I mean literal. I am suddenly in outer space, and all I see around me is this absolutely black night, this not night, but black sky. I mean, black space, all the space around me. And I could see the earth and the moon in front of me, but they were a distance from me. So I was like some distance back, and I could see the blue marble of the earth. And then I could see the moon, which was some distance away and quite a lot smaller. And I thought, oh, that's the earth and the moon. How cool. And I had no fear. That was something that was quite interesting because there I am alone. I'm alone in outer space. I'm looking at this literal stuff. There was no fear. In fact, as I looked into the space around me, it felt like this deep, deep silence. And it sounds contradictory, but it was almost like a reverberating silence.
Mm.
Um, it felt so peaceful. It was so hard to put words to how peaceful it felt. And it also felt like huge, like this huge expanse. And I was like, wow, how cool is this? And I just sensed that there were two beings behind me, but they never came forward. But I just felt like there were these beings guiding me. And the next thing is they whisked me away from that scene to some other place in the universe. And I just had this feeling of, wow, I've been whisked over this huge distance. And I came face to face with two other planets. Now, these were different. The main one that I was looking at was brown. And I don't think that it had human life or some kind of, alien beings living there. It just seemed to me like a bare brown planet. And then to the right was its moon or a companion planet. It was a bit smaller. And what I saw was as these planets were going around each other, I noticed that the first one that I was looking at was conscious. I didn't see it from outside the planet. It was like I connected with the planet and I could feel all of its feelings. And I felt that the planet itself was totally conscious, like as in a sense of self, like this is me, I'm this planet. This is what it feels like to be me. And also, I'm aware of this other planet or this moon that's circling around me. And as I looked at that moon, I saw that it had the same. It had its own consciousness and the consciousness of the first planet. And I was like, like fascinated by this because there was nothing in my childhood that had prepared me for any idea of any planet having any consciousness. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what? As I'm looking at this. And then, you know, I looked at it even more and I saw that the feelings that I felt the feelings of each planet and that it was pure joy. It was utter joy. So the closest I can connect that to something that we can relate to here on Earth is imagine if on a beautiful, let's say an autumn day, the sun is shining down on you, you're outside on the garden, and you're swinging around with your best friend or your mother or, your beloved friend or something, and you're swinging around each other while you're holding arms, and that kind of this old phrase, gay abandon, that just you just let go and you're just so happy in the moment. That is what it felt like for the planets to be going around each other. And then, and then you might think, but don't they get bored? Well, no, because I also had this feeling of every moment was like new. It wasn't like okay, another decade of going around each other. It's not even like a comet to come and entertain us or something. It was nothing like that. It was like each moment was like the most utter joy. And then the last thing I can share about this is I looked at the gravitational attraction between them, because my dad is a scientist, so I guess I had already a bit of a sciencey feeling about things, and I knew that gravity was like a thing. So I looked at this gravitational attraction that was holding them together with each other, and blow me down, even that had an emotion to it that felt like love. It felt like pure love. And as I looked at the gravity force between them, it even had like little sparkly bits in it.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so it was everything other than just a dead brown rock. It was completely the opposite of that. So I guess that was the end of my little sojourn in the cosmos, because the next thing I knew is I was right back in my body. And I was like, at first, like, what just happened, But the feeling I had was I was on a cloud. I was on a high for like a week, at least a week. I was on a complete high. um, it just rearranged my whole paradigm. And so, as I say, I knew that there was now so much more to reality than just what we can see, touch, feel, measure, all those things. And it was quite interesting just looking back at that experience because I could see those planets from a quote scientific point of view, knowing that there's gravity and there's this momentum that they had, and that these brown planets. But there was this other way of looking at them as well. And that other way, which went beyond the physical, was truly magical. It was way more exciting, in fact, than the more scientific way of looking at it. So I think that just started to open me up to the more, that there's more to life. And I have had several other experiences, not quite like this one, but several other like alternative or spiritual experiences, including things like realizing that I had healing hands. At some point it occurred to me and I found out that I do have healing hands. I've had communications with my departed younger brother, where in a series of dreams, we not only talked, but we actually, which is very unusual, we actually connected. We not only touched, but we merged. We literally had a merging of our consciousnesses.
Mhm.
And I would put that as one of the top most incredible experiences of my life. Just that one deeply lucid dream with my departed brother.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences like touching a cat that had just died, but when I was overseas and learned of my beloved cat who had just died, and things where I would ask the angels or my guides to just let me touch the cat one last time. And lo and behold, they did. I touched a
Mhm.
warm, furry little kitty cat.
Mhm.
So,
Beautiful.
yeah. So from that experience now, if we can sort of park that for a moment, now I'd like to just talk about my playground experience, which was roughly the same age. So, in this playground experience, I am at a brand new kindergarten. And I'm quite an active little kid. I'm very balanced as a kid. I like everything from climbing trees, climbing things to, doing my art and my drawings and, reading or whatever. So, baking cookies, all those things. So there I am, and there's this gorgeous little, what do you call it? That like wooden structure, like a, um, this thing that you climb up onto and you can like pretend you on this big camping wooden structure. But it had this pole that you could slide down. So I did that. I got up and I was like, wow, how fun is that? And I slid down this pole a couple of times. And then once I was standing on the ground, this little blonde boy um, comes walking up to me with his like elbows out and his hands on his hips, and he says, "Girls don't do that." You know, so I was like shocked to say the least, because I mean, had I done something wrong? What is, this was going through my mind at 100 miles an hour. What have I done wrong? Is this wrong? And then as I settled down, I kid you not, a voice came into my head and said, "But God made you like this." So I was like, okay, that's true. God made me like this. I was athletic and I was strong and I had good balance. And so, who am I to stop myself from having these fun experiences just because I'm a girl and I must like fit into some box? So these were the things going through my mind. And I thought, uh, no, I just didn't. I decided that I was going to go with the way God made me rather than with society. But it was a hard decision, y'all. I mean, everyone wants to fit in, everyone wants to be liked. None of us really particularly likes rejection, So it was a tough thing that I had to work through, but I ultimately decided no, I was going to be true to myself.
What age do you think you were at that time?
I was about 6 then, too.
Oh, you were young. You were still young. Wow.
Very young, very young. But now the other thing is, I was also aware of other things going on in the world. Like I was aware that there was this quote unquote battle of the sexes, if I could put it that way,
Mhm.
because I saw my mother and her friends, and they would always be complaining about relationships. Not my mother, but her friends were often like so unhappy in their relationships.
Mhm.
Um, Now, a very personal thing I'll share with you now, but was really relevant to this. I tuned into some real deep pain that my grandmother had, but I didn't even know what it was. But I knew it had to do with this stuff, which I'm now talking, this gender stuff. And what I later found out, only perhaps 3 years ago, is that she had just had too many kids for her liking. She did not want to have more kids. Look, she was born in like, I don't know, 1906 or something. So this is an older generation. But she'd already had 8 pregnancies. And what I didn't know is that she'd actually aborted the last one because she had just had enough. And my own mother, tells me that when her mother was 42, she was ancient, she was old, she was exhausted and kind of just worn out. Um, and she was a really spiritual, very deeply religious person. But that's what I think I tapped into her pain as well. But I started to put it all together in my mind. I realized that, wait a minute, the way that boy spoke to me connects somehow to all of this stuff. I didn't know quite how, but I saw, wait a minute, I was like that. And my feeling was, we can do better than this. And I meant we as society, we can do better than this. There's this raging battle. I knew that it had been going for thousands of years as well. It
Mhm.
wasn't a new thing at all. And by the way, this was 1974 when all of this happened. So you can just get some context there too. But I wanted to create a better life, a better world. I wanted to address in my mind what was causing this deep pain in the world and what the heck we could do about it. And for me, this gender, let's say, gender harmony, which is what I was looking for, and spirituality came together. At first, I thought these were two different things, but they weren't. They started to come together in my mind. Like, wait a minute. And so that's where I'm going to be pointing to in this talk, is how creating a different paradigm around gender, where we're still allowed to have gender, we still have men and women, we still have, let's say, the biological, or the innate physiological differences that we have, and those can still stay, but where we don't we don't finish the job right there and say, oh, well, that's their biology, so that's who they are, and that's the end of that. Because if we stayed with that, we would never develop, I realized. I realized that if we defined ourselves as these halves, like, in other words, like women as just feminine energy and men as just masculine energy, and boy, the twain should never meet, then we were in trouble. And that's what I'd like to go forward now and tell you more of my story and how I realized all these things and how it connects to spiritual development, because it is utterly connected. And I'm very happy to tell you that I'm satisfied with what I discovered. I discovered enormous things. They came to me like as in downloads later in my, like around the age of 30. But at this point, I just knew I'm going to spend a lot of my time and like my purpose working on this, figuring this out. And I'm not going to stop until I've figured it out. That was my feeling. So that has been my journey, my purpose, and everything. And I've actually made a lot of things in my life second to this because I wanted nothing more than to solve this conundrum. Right. So, what it comes down to later on is something like balancing head and heart, you know. So, balancing thinking and feeling, balancing logic and intuition, all these pairs of opposites. But instead of one pair belonging to one gender and one to the other one, supposedly, our best journey is to integrate them. But let me show you more about kind of just how I got there and how things kind of unfolded in my own journey, because I got really out of balance before I got into balance again. Right, so let's continue. I'm now going to talk about my own masculine phase because I went through a very masculine energy phase of my life. And that was, I felt as a young girl growing up in the 70s that there was this double bind that I felt girls and women were in. And I'll just describe it like this. Well, this is in my culture where I was raised. Maybe it's not quite the same everywhere, but I was raised like girls are girls and boys are boys. So you're separate and you're completely different, and never the twain shall meet. I mean, God forbid that, boys show emotions or that girls have ambitions. It was kind of like stay in your lane.
Mm.
And while we're at it, we also want you to understand that anything masculine is viewed as higher and more important and more valuable than anything feminine. So, including men versus women, but also things like, let's say, like STEM subjects. You all know what I mean by STEM subjects, right? Science, technology. Those were now more important and would be paid more highly than other subjects like nursing or, a BA in literature or whatever it may be that's not a STEM subject. So I was, in my mind, I was told, be a girl, and by the way, you're less than. So I thought, wait a minute, how does that make any sense? I'm not going to settle for that. And so my answer to that was, I sort of thought, oh, well, screw that. I'm going to develop my masculine side and I'm not going to let go of it, because I thought, well, if that's the side that society actually values, then I'm going to do that. So, guess what? In high school, when lots of my friends were getting into puberty, just like I was, but where they were getting more into like wearing shorter and shorter skirts, and dresses and that, I was like, I realized I enjoyed math and science, and so I really developed that side of me. I went on to study geology and became a geologist with a master's degree, and math right up to the bachelor's level. I can't believe that now looking back, but it happened. And I went into my first career, which was in a consulting engineering firm, which was a consulting mining engineering firm. Now, you cannot get almost a more masculine energy setup or environment than something like that. And boy, within 6 months, I was swept up into the culture of that business, that workplace. It was, I worked I worked such long hours. I worked on Saturdays. I worked through public holidays. There was this culture of, like public holidays are only for weaklings. So I really got swept up into that. So there I was, and guess what? I learned a lot about myself because I was thrown into situations where I had to make decisions that could cost millions of dollars this way or that way. I would have like a drilling rig out in the field, and I would be the responsible hydrogeologist. And I had to solve problems. Suddenly this doesn't work or that doesn't work. And there was just this, wow, okay, so I can do that. And it was really cool. But it only lasted 5 years for me because by the end of that, I was so burnt out. I used to work hard and then go for a run in order to relax, work hard, play hard. So, um, So I realized that I'd gotten really out of balance when a therapist asked me, Loraine, how do you feel? And I was like, what do you mean? How do I feel? I'm fine. And she said, no, how do you feel right now? And we were talking about a boyfriend that I was having issues with at that time. And I said, and I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck or anything. I couldn't access it. I literally couldn't feel my feelings. So I said, I think I'm okay. She said, no, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm not asking you what you think you feel. What do you feel? So I realized, oh my God, I'm gotten so out of balance with myself. And right almost there and then I decided that I was going to give myself a year off to go travel the world and go and find myself. And I wanted something more spiritually connected. I knew that this was good, it was a good phase or whatever, but I was not going to stay in it. So I had the gift of a whole year of leisure time, sitting in a cafe in you know, Salzburg in Austria, going around the world, journaling, reading amazingly beautiful, deep books that really opened my mind to spiritual things. And I just sucked it up like a sponge. And I had very healing experiences that whole year, like physical experiences. My skin changed. I mean, I don't even have to go into the detail, but I could feel that emotional wounds that I hadn't healed from my own family life and upbringing were now being healed. Um, so that took me to a fascinating degree that I then studied in California. And that was, by the way, at almost a sister institution to what you guys are studying at now, Ollie. I don't know if any of you have heard of John F. Kennedy University, but it was in the Bay Area at that time. It's since been bought out, but John F. Kennedy believed in adult education into, lifelong adult education. So they actually had a few degrees, and I managed to study this unusual degree in consciousness studies. And it was a master's degree, and it took 3 years. And it was like 3 years of intensely experiential exercises. It wasn't overly academic. It was like healing through and through. I came out a different person.
Mhm.
I actually came out of there reconnected with my feelings, no longer afraid of emotions, no longer had a need to push down emotions or feel embarrassed if I was crying in front of somebody. I lost all of those like emotions are taboo and whatnot, my intuition came back very strongly. I had to do Reiki to, in some ways, just to pay the bills there. But I did Reiki, and there were like miraculous healings. I started having lucid dreams, and that's where I dreamt of my brother, and had other lucid dreams as well, flying and so on. And I became a softer, more integrated, more balanced version of myself. I became my true self. And the best thing is I did not feel that I had to give up what I had gained of my masculine side. I still retain to this day a very logical side. I can do DIY. My husband and I love doing DIY together. And we've learned to do it in such a way that nobody's going to try and, like push the drill at the other person. We found a way of just really having such fun with it because we're not competitive with each other. That hyper competitiveness that I had, which drove me to drive myself like a slave driver, I lost that, you know, damaging kind of competition level. I really did. I let it go. Oh, so I mean, I can almost just breathe better as I'm talking about this newer phase of myself. So what I realized from this is that, oh my, like, first of all, oh my God, think about it. I was a woman who became very much in her male side. So that's possible. Anyone who says, you can't integrate the opposite, it's just not possible. No, it's so possible that that's all I became at some point. And then I regained the feminine side, and that's possible too. So if I can regain my deeply feminine side from that place where I was, then I would say to any man or any woman out there who's very much in their masculine side, yes, you can. You can do it too. Anybody can do this, I promise you. Um, and it's a really good thing. It opens up so much to be able to be balanced. So a couple of things that I then realized, and this is where things came to me in downloads. I have a whole 4-quadrant model that came to me in one fell swoop. Um, but I'm just wondering one question, and then this is sort of a question to everybody. Would it be helpful if I just kind of named or even shared screen and showed you an image of a document that has masculine and feminine qualities, or shall I just read out a few of them? I'm just
If
wondering.
you want to share, that would be, yeah, that would be great.
I see you can see the same. So I know some of you are driving, and so not all of you can see this, but I'll actually just call them out as well. A few things that came to me are that I could boil down feminine energy and masculine energy to 3 terms each. And this is so powerful. This is so powerful, you guys, because it applies to everything in the universe, I later discovered. If I call the feminine side inward, receptive, and integrating, I don't know if that makes sense to you guys as the 3 pivotal qualities. And masculine, I would call outward, active, and differentiating. So I'm going to just draw your attention to the moment of conception, which is, to me, is the most where the 2 poles, the masculine pole and the feminine pole, come together, is in at the moment of conception. Now, is the feminine side inward, receptive, and integrating? Yeah, right. And is the masculine side, and I'm talking physically now, physiologically, is the masculine side outward? Is it active and differentiating, like where little sperms are differentiating from each other as they come closer to the egg and they integrated, one is integrated into the egg. So to me, it's so quintessential to look at it like that. And when you apply it to humans, what I get out of that is the feminine side is our inwardly oriented side, whereas our masculine is more outwardly oriented. So, inwardly oriented would be like everything from feelings to your imagination, your degree of self awareness, your self esteem, in fact, how you love and connect with yourself. That is an inward job. It's an inside job, you know. Your meditation, um, it's also inward. It's letting go. It's connected to letting go. It's very peaceful. It's your intuition. Intuition. It's even the word talks about, you know, the inside of us. Now, the outer aspect of ourselves is the more tangible stuff, whereas the inward is very subtle. So the outward would be like measuring things, like seeking evidence for something being a certain way, like planning a trip, like also things like how you express yourself in the world. Not how you feel now, but how you express that, how you show up in the world, the action you take. Like if you have a goal, you know, you're going to take action towards that. That's your masculine energy in action. Achievement, outer achievement, like what level did you get to in your job, or what financial level did you get to? Those are kind of involve your own masculine energy. Yeah, logic, strategy, money, worldly experiences. Those are more, to me, on the masculine side. Now let's carry on. The feminine is also receptive, whereas the masculine I see is active. So receptive is like everything like letting go, going with the flow, resting as opposed to always go, 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 you know, taking time out to connect with yourself, being present in the moment, being in the flow, you know, that flow state that they often talk about, and runners get it, a runner's high. That being in the flow is your feminine energy, whereas your masculine would be like doing things, taking action, taking control of a situation that, you know, somebody falls, you reach out and you help them up. Effort, you know, making things happen, doing it by yourself. That would be perhaps the energy of masculine within all of us. Now, remember, I'm actually making a point that all of us have these qualities. This is you. All of this is you. Now, some of us haven't activated all of these qualities, but these qualities are you and they're inside you. Now, by integrating and differentiating, I'm talking about the feminine view to me is more of a big picture view. It's more holistic and it's more integrative. It's like people who like to study interdisciplinary subjects, that would be feminine energy because you're bringing things together. Masculine energy, on the other end, is about the content of whatever you're studying. Like it could be scientific, but it will be the parts of the whole. It will be the analysis. It will be like if you have a speciality and you're like a neurosurgeon, that's a one deep, very deep, but very narrow field of speciality. That represents masculine energy. But if that same cardiologist doesn't know that, let's say, putting your feet on the ground and grounding yourself on Mother Earth and recharging your body that way, they're not going to usually know about stuff like that or natural medicines and stuff. So that's the difference. One is more masculine, and the more integrative, more holistic way of seeing life is more feminine. And we don't want one or the other, we want both. So intuitive and logical. The feminine is also very much more we, whereas the masculine aspect of us is me. And you need both. You need a consciousness that looks at we, but you also need one that looks at me. What about my needs? So, I mean, and that was going back to my grandmother. She had no recourse to the what about me in her marriage in that situation. She had to yield. She felt that she had to yield and take it, and she didn't have rights and didn't have the right to say no, and so on. And so there weren't those boundaries that she would have really benefited from. And that was the time, you know. But that's how it plays out into very practical stuff as we're looking at this. And then, of course, the feminine is more about getting along, whereas the masculine is about getting ahead. So it's always this balancing action. But now the last two are really interesting to me. The feminine to me is the magic, whereas the masculine is the structure. In an ideal world, and in an ideal world within ourselves, our masculine should provide the structure. That could mean the money, it could mean the time that we set aside, it could mean taking action in a certain way. But that structure should be able to support the magic that we are able to create in the world. The magic is what we create. It's our creativity, it's our intuition, it's spontaneity, it's everything that's very deeply spiritual, in fact. It's how to raise our vibrations, it's synchronicity, it's the law of attraction, it's abundance, and it's even miracles. To me, those things reside in our feminine side. And I think that the world out there just doesn't understand the absolute beauty and power of the feminine. If we understood this, even just this page here, I think the world would be a very different place. If we could understand that we all have both,
Great.
and how to create a world where even on a collective level, we've got this balance. You know, governments could create this kind of balance. Imagine a world where the masculine and feminine are no longer fighting each other, but they're actually friends and they actually understand each other. And so imagine, like, even like a government creating this structure, putting the structures in place to support the social needs of people. And imagine if we could get to a place where we didn't even have to work to survive. Imagine if we could get to a place of a universal basic income where every single person could have some kind of a roof over their head and could follow their God-given purpose in life. What kind of a world would that be, where everybody is doing their purpose rather than slogging away, you know, at minimum wage, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, can't make ends meet, and where the top 1% of the culture owns more than the bottom 90%. You know, I mean, that the imbalance we see in the world is not a random imbalance, you guys. I hope you can see that it is this imbalance.
Mhm.
It's this, just on a large scale. So the imbalance we see in the world is what it looks like on a collective consciousness. And it's what it shows is that we are in still a very polarized situation. There's a lot of enmity still between these two. Relationships are falling apart. Lots of, you know, I mean, you guys know this, lots of women don't even want to get married or have kids anymore. Lots of men don't want to. So we are seeing a world that we have co-created due to our collective consciousness, which is still a gender binary. So my work and my message is that if we want to get beyond this world to a better world, we need to build that balance into ourselves and ultimately across all the systems of society, the government, politics, our healthcare systems, our economic systems, which are now so out of balance, so skewed. Every system that we create needs the balance of masculine and feminine qualities or energies. And I hope it's also clear, but it doesn't help that one half of the population holds up the flag for feminine energies and the other half holds up the flag for masculine energies. That ain't going to go anywhere. That gender binary is what gets us into this problem. And I would like to just take a few minutes, if I still have time, to just describe that last bit. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's quick because we have about 15 minutes left.
Okay. Okay. You see, one of the downloads I got is that when you look at masculine energies or qualities and feminine energies, all of them are neutral. Every one of them is actually neutral. If you can do logic, that's great, but it's neutral. It's not bad. It's actually good. Sorry, I mean, I say it's neutral, but what I mean is they're all good. All of those qualities, intuition, logic, precision thinking, structure, creativity, all of that's good. But when we are siloed into one or the other, what happens is our whole paradigm gets informed by that one half of who we think we are. And a paradigm is something I learned about in my consciousness studies degree. I've never forgotten this. A paradigm is basically an unconscious set of assumptions, beliefs, and a worldview that we don't even know we have in the first place. So people who are mostly in their masculine side won't even realize that they have a particular a color that they see the world through, and the same with the opposite side. And what happens when we're in one side or the other is those qualities that would otherwise have just been beautiful become toxic. So if all we know is assertiveness, that can go to aggression. If all we know is logic, then that goes to scientific reductionism. So then we dismiss anything that's alternative or like, ghosts, or is there life after death, or is there, do we have angels? Do we have guides? Any of that will just be dismissed summarily because there's no place for that in a masculine only paradigm. You see what I'm saying? So the worst thing we can do is to remain gender binary, a gender binary, because that's what's created this paradigmed worldview. Oh, and on the masculine side, there's an appreciation for hierarchy, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if that's all you know, and that's all you ever think is natural and normal, then everything becomes a race. Everything is a competition. And it's a dog eat dog world because you want to get to the top. And sadly, that's the world we're in right now. And it's because there is no system of checks and balances in a person who's not balanced. It's just like your government. The American government is famous for this idea of checks and balances. Now, I know that, maybe at the moment things are a little bit topsy-turvy, but the concept of it is brilliant. It keeps things in check. Now, being balanced as a person keeps us in check with ourselves. Your own feminine would say to you, oh my God, stop that. You're being, you're having power over this poor person, or you're abusing your power, or you're stop. And it would come from within us. We won't need a policeman outside of us. So that is what I'm advocating for, is the best possible way to step into a bright future. And it just so happens that near-death experiencer after near-death experiencer after near-death experiencer are now talking more and more and more about the need to balance our masculine and feminine, because that is the way we rise to a higher frequency, and that is how we will get to 5D consciousness. And I don't know if that term is used a lot here, but it's a higher consciousness than we have right now. So it's
Wonderful.
all connected.
Yeah, it is. It's all connected. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Loraine. That was beautiful.
Welcome.
Wow, so much you shared with us today. I just love how you like it was like you came into the world with this knowing, right? Even at age 1, you were thinking, I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna get it right this time, or and then age 4 asking your mother, what was it like, or what was it like before this, and then your mom
Mm,
like you know, thinking about the earth, but your mind, you were going broad with everything. I just love
right.
that. It's like you were born with this mission, right? This
Yeah, it
questioning.
feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really
So
does.
so
Yeah.
I think many of us, I've had similar experiences as a kid where I was told, well, you're a girl. And I mean, that to me, I remember feeling heartbroken. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
Right.
it's so, yeah, it's just it's, and I'm sure many of the women here have been through similar things, right? Where we're told we have to fit into some kind of a box that's different, right? Than or a societal box. But
Absolutely.
you just knew at a young age, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
great. Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
It's
And
great.
I stuck to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
I'm
then
so
going into
happy.
that
Oh,
field,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, and
Yes.
then going into the field of geology and working
Oh,
and going through
yes.
all of that, that's like
Oh,
kind of like reminds me of a little bit of like a dark night of the soul, when you were just
right.
slogging along and trying to, figure out what's going on here. And then you went kind of almost like a breakthrough moment. And then you took that time for yourself. You listened to your inner guidance, right? Like,
Yes.
I need to
Yes.
just chill for a while and get it
Yes.
together here.
Exactly.
Wonderful that you were able to do that and travel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a gift. Yeah. Such a gift.
And I see you have a book. Is that a book that you wrote,
Oh,
Larry?
yes. Oh, yes. This is my book. I eventually went on to write a book. It took me 7 years.
Wow.
And it's the
Nice.
law of balance. And I meant it, the law of balance. I was thinking of the law of attraction. You all know,
Mhm.
like how important that is. And I thought, well, this is like almost a companion concept,
Yeah.
because they kind of tie in a way together as you become more balanced, and you look at for what you want in life, you can attract it. You can begin to attract it
Yeah.
more. So,
Wonderful.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
loved how you talked about the world. And because I've also had, these feelings also that, I mean, when I was a child, I remember having these thoughts like, we shouldn't have money. Like, money is causing
Right.
so much division. And, like, there should be no
Yeah.
such thing as money. And then everyone would be happy. We could just
Right.
all do what we want to do, But it's kind of similar to what you were saying. Like, if we could all live in a world where we're here to just be who we are, who we truly are,
Yes.
and
Yes.
use what we have or what we're interested in, like at an early age,
Yes.
kind of go where we're interested, right? Or what our
Yes.
gifts or talents or abilities are, and strengthen that instead of putting everyone in like this cookie cutter, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
I definitely I could see a world where we would all get along, like everybody could help one another with their gifts,
Yeah.
their abilities.
Right.
But
Right.
I think maybe
Exactly.
one day it'll be like that here on Earth. But right now
Yes.
we have to get
Yes.
the chaos
We have to get
sorted
through
all out.
this phase. Yeah. But that's a really important point that you made there, Catherine, is balance doesn't make us all the same because we're each unique. We're
Right.
completely unique. Like your background and your particular history and what you've overcome and your impressions is completely unique to anybody else in the world. So, like you say, we're all drawn to particular things that light our fire,
Yeah.
and that makes us unique. But balance just makes us really capable, like super, what's the word? Like capable of doing whatever it is that we're drawn to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we could all be living in our joy, right? Instead of living this life
Yeah.
of struggle and
Yes.
want, and just everything is revolves
Yes.
around money and consumption and more and more and more and me and me and me. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I think eventually, you talked about the 5D, right? I think that we are raising like by people becoming more in touch with their feminine side, which is their intuitive side, their
Yes.
spiritual connection, the bigger picture, right?
Yes.
Communities, I think
Yes.
that eventually, we are raising our consciousness collectively. It doesn't seem like that if we look at, the news or, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
Right.
I think, I think this situation that we're in, and especially here in the States, forces people in a way to look inward, because it's not until we go through these really challenging times that we start to question and look more deeply and say, wait a minute, something's not
Yeah.
right here. And, so I think
Exactly.
eventually we will come out of this much better world, but I think it's
Yes.
going to take time. All right.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I think we're at the cutting edge of this, right? People that have had these kind of spiritual experiences, and now we're out talking about it, and people that are interested in these experiences. So it's kind of like we're at that cutting edge of this new paradigm that's coming into the
Yes.
world. That's
Yes.
kind of how I
You,
view.
you know, if I can just add another little thing there, you guys have all heard of quantum computers, right?
Mhm.
Well, it turns out that a normal computer is almost like us in a gender binary because each bit can either be a zero or a one. And that's I mean, I know it's a longer story, but it can only be a zero or one, and you have to choose. Whereas a quantum computer literally means that every bit in the computer can be a zero or a one as it chooses or as it needs to in that moment.
Mhm.
And quantum computers are orders of magnitude better, more stronger, more powerful, quicker, and more effective than an ordinary computer. So I think we are going to unleash our true potential by
Mm.
being balanced like little quantum human beings,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we choose whatever meets the needs of that moment. We're not always one way or the other. We just, what the moment needs, that's what we provide, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all like each one of us is responsible for our own, our own selves, our own consciousness, our own growth, our own light, right? But that
Yes.
also affects others around us. So, when you're
Yes.
talking about the quantum computers, I feel like we also have that within ourselves where we can,
Yes.
go in more deeply and be in touch with different realities and things like that. So, all right, I'm going to
Yes.
open it up and see if anybody has any questions, insights, feedback. This was wonderful, wonderful talk that you gave today. Thank
Great.
you. And it was
I'm
really
so
perfect
glad.
for our last workshop. It was really
Some food for
wonderful way.
thought there over the
Yeah.
summer.
Anybody want to say anything to Loraine? All right,
I'd love to
Kathy.
hear from you guys.
Sure.
Kathy,
Hi, Loraine. I guess
hi.
Catherine was alluding to before, this lack of balance doesn't just jeopardize women and their development,
Of
but
course.
men are adversely affected. How many times do we tell little boys, don't cry? How
Yes.
many times do we say to someone, oh, he picked on you, son? Beat him up. So
Yeah.
men have to be able to accept the fact, okay, so I have a feminine side. There's nothing wrong with that. And I shouldn't get angry if a woman has a masculine side, But anyway, so
Yes.
men are adversely affected as well as women. So when this is all balanced,
100%.
hooray.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And they have so much pressure, have had so much pressure on them to always have all the answers and never admit weakness and never show that might be vulnerable in this moment. That is what contributes to the whole problem, because a leader like that isn't going to take time to think and feel his feelings and work through it and become wiser. Hell no. So thank you
Yeah.
for that point. Exactly.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. Anybody else?
Come on, folks. I'm dying to hear from you.
Yeah.
I'm so enthusiastic about this course that you're on. And
I
there's
love
no bad questions.
I love your enthusiasm too. I want to say, Loraine,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. This dark phase that I think we're in right now is just the necessary step prior to a massive shift that I think is already underway.
Yeah.
But it's where all the hidden stuff is actually coming to the surface,
Yeah.
where the quiet part gets said out loud, and where very bad hidden stuff like networks, dark networks of bad things happening in the world will
Yeah.
come up.
Right.
And for us to look at, and reckon with, and
The only
heal.
way it can heal. It's the only
Yeah,
way it can heal. It can't
right.
heal in the dark, right? It has to come
Exactly.
up to the light where people can
Right.
see it, feel it, experience, like, no, okay, this
Yes,
this is what needs to be done differently. And I think the
exactly.
younger generation, the younger ones that are going to be going into government and being in positions of
Yes,
authority, they're going to be a totally different type
yes,
of leadership we're going to see, because they
yes,
have been through all this stuff, and they're not gonna put up with it. They're not gonna continue it, this
yeah,
selfishness, right? That we're
yes,
seeing. So
yes. And this
I feel
might is
positive.
right. Or
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
positive about the world
yeah.
and where it's going, even though I know it looks crazy. I
Mm,
don't think it's gonna stay like this for
I
long.
agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I feel
Yeah.
the same way. We're in a
Yeah.
huge transformation.
Yeah. We are.
And all this information that everyone on this call is gathering through the various talks and programs that you're doing, it's just absolutely so helpful, I believe. Because I mean, my John F. Kennedy University experience was in some ways like this, classes and people with lots of life experience would share their thoughts on things. And yeah.
All right. I
Hi.
I see we have a hand up.
That was
Hey,
Valerie.
Valerie.
very, I listened from the beginning to the end of everything that was said in class, and I found it fascinating. And I had a time also where that masculine side came over me to succeed when I
Aha.
studied computer programming in Germany and fashion and textiles of electronic knitting machines. And I was told that I can't get my certificate from the textile university unless I could lift the machine carriage off of the machine.
What? What?
After grueling with all men for many years, and I said, okay. So I went to the pub the night before the exam, And I
Right.
bought a bunch of guys drinks, and I said, could you help me tomorrow take the carriage off of the machine so we could do the CAD tests, so I could show, the troubleshooting and the programming that I'm writing based on the exam. So the president of the company, Universal Knitting Machines, said, okay, go ahead, take your carriage off. This is the last part of it to show how the cams are working under the carriage. And I whistled, and I got these guys over,
You
and
whistled.
they brought over a horse, which, if you know, in construction, you use it to lay stuff on.
Yeah.
And he goes, you can't do that. I go, watch me.
Good for
At
you.
that point, and I was 23.
Yeah. Good for you.
Wow.
Good
But
for
I
you.
felt I was dressed like a man. I was acting
Yeah.
like a man, and I am
Right.
a femme fatale. I mean, I'm a very feminine, girly girl.
Mhm.
Right.
But there has been times in my life that something
Yeah.
channeled through me.
Yes.
Ah, well,
Yeah.
that's a great story, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that, Valerie.
And I'm sure, Valerie, that even to this day, you still retain some of the good parts of the masculine energy that you picked up.
So I am so happy you were with us on our last day for the summer
Oh,
classes.
thank you.
It was such a blessing to have you here. And everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here during this summer workshop. And we're going to have a new fall semester with different speakers that are going to come in. So I hope you guys sign up and take the class again. Loved having you here. And thank you again, Loraine. It was so
Thank
nice.
you. Thank
And
you
I
so
will
much,
talk to you
everybody.
soon. All righty. Many blessings.
Thank you, Loraine.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
great day, everybody.
You
Yeah.
And
too,
you,
Loraine.
Catherine.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent.